October 14, 2005. A crisp, dry autumn morning settled over Albuquerque, New Mexico, masking the tension that would soon grip the city. In the Sandoval family home, 16-year-old Jessica Sandoval kissed her younger brother goodbye as she left for school, unaware that she would never return. Known for her bright smile, artistic talent, and unwavering curiosity, Jessica had a way of lighting up every room she entered. She was a diligent student, a loyal friend, and a passionate participant in the local youth art program. That morning, her parents, Miguel and Rosa Sandoval, watched her walk down the street with a sense of pride, tinged with the usual parental worry. It would take only hours for that worry to turn into fear, and for fear to spiral into a decades-long nightmare that would haunt their family and the community. Jessica never arrived at school. Her friends, expecting her at art class, grew concerned when she didn't show up. By 3 p.m., the Sandovals realized she was missing. Initially, they contacted neighbors, friends, and classmates, hoping she had simply wandered off to a friend's house. As hours turned into an agonizing evening, panic set in. By nightfall, Miguel and Rosa called the Albuquerque Police Department to report Jessica as a missing person. At first, authorities treated it as a typical runaway case. Jessica had never exhibited rebellious behavior, yet investigators followed standard protocol, canvassing the neighborhood, checking local hangouts, and speaking with classmates. The initial days were filled with frantic searching. Volunteers from the community, neighbors and school friends combed nearby streets, parks, and alleyways. Flyers with Jessica's photograph were posted in every grocery store, gas station, and bus stop. Local news outlets ran repeated segments highlighting her disappearance and appealing to the public for information. Despite these efforts, the trail grew cold. No sightings, no clues, no whispers of her whereabouts. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, but Jessica remained missing. The Sandovals refused to give up. Miguel, a construction foreman with a meticulous mind and unwavering determination, converted a spare room in their home into a makeshift investigation headquarters. Maps of Albuquerque and surrounding neighborhoods covered the walls, pins marking areas already searched or requiring further attention. Every tip, every lead, every call was logged and catalogued in color-coded folders. Rosa, though consumed with worry and grief, managed the communications, responding to emails, phone calls, and letters from concerned citizens. Friends from church, co-workers, and distant relatives joined in the effort, forming a network of support that would last for years. Investigators struggled with the case. There was no ransom note, no signs of struggle near Jessica's home, and no suspicious activity reported in the immediate area. Without concrete evidence, the case slowly drifted toward cold status. For the next decade, sporadic reviews occurred, but nothing broke the deadlock. The Albuquerque Police Department reopened the case several times, relying on new interviews and old leads, but progress was minimal. The lack of physical evidence proved to be the greatest obstacle. Over the years, technology evolved. By 2015, DNA analysis had become a cornerstone of criminal investigations, and cold cases nationwide were being revisited. The Sandovals, determined as ever, worked closely with detectives to ensure all evidence from Jessica's disappearance was preserved and digitized. Investigators hoped that modern techniques might uncover something previously overlooked, a hair strand, a fiber, or a trace of DNA that could finally provide a lead. Despite these efforts, the case remained unsolved, a silent torment that shadowed every Sandoval family milestone, from birthdays to graduations. Community awareness kept the case alive. Every year on October 14th, volunteers organized candlelight vigils, holding signs and photographs of Jessica, reminding Albuquerque that one of their own was missing. Local schools incorporated lessons on personal safety, missing person awareness, and community vigilance. News outlets occasionally revisited the case, often featuring updates on technological advancements that might offer new hope. For the Sandovals, every mention, every spark of interest was a reminder that their daughter's story mattered, that it could not be forgotten. By 2020, the Albuquerque Police Department had formed a dedicated cold case unit, focusing on long unsolved disappearances. Jessica Sandoval's case was among the first reviewed. Detectives meticulously examined all existing evidence, re-interviewed witnesses, and cross-referenced information with modern databases. Forensic specialists re-evaluated items from the original investigation, including Jessica's personal effects, clothing, and items found near her usual routes. One seemingly insignificant lead began to draw attention: a vehicle reportedly seen in the vicinity of Jessica's last known location. This vehicle, a dark blue 1998 sedan, had been briefly mentioned in a neighbor's statement in 2005, but had never been fully investigated. At the time, police lacked the resources to track every tip thoroughly. Modern license plate databases, combined with DMV records and surveillance footage analysis from nearby businesses, allowed detectives to identify the car's last known owner. It was registered to a man named Victor Ramirez, a 42-year-old local contractor who had lived in Albuquerque since the late 1990s. Ramirez had no prior arrests of major note, though there were minor citations for traffic violations and disputes with neighbors over property lines. Detectives launched a background investigation. Ramirez's employment history, social connections, and whereabouts on the day of Jessica's disappearance were examined. It became apparent that Ramirez had been in the general area where Jessica was last seen, a fact previously unnoticed due to incomplete records in 2005. Investigators cross-referenced this information with modern GPS and utility data to establish a timeline. His movements, once considered routine, now aligned uncomfortably with the hours Jessica went missing. The breakthrough came in late 2021 when forensic analysts collected DNA samples from the interior of Ramirez's vehicle, which he still owned. Using advanced mitochondrial DNA testing, they discovered a partial match to material stored in Albuquerque's cold case evidence vault, fibers and biological traces, recovered from Jessica's clothing and backpack in 2005, though degraded over time. The samples were sufficient to establish a strong connection between Ramirez and Jessica, something impossible to prove in 2005. Detectives sought corroborating evidence. Witnesses who had not spoken to police in years were re-interviewed. Former co-workers and acquaintances described Ramirez's behavior, noting instances of unusual interest in local teenagers and suspicious nighttime activities around construction sites and vacant lots. One former employee revealed that Ramirez had confided in him about picking up someone who had wandered off in the early 2000s, a statement that, at the time, seemed vague and easily dismissed. Now investigators recognized its potential significance. The Albuquerque Police Department coordinated with the FBI to prepare for Ramirez's apprehension. Surveillance and monitoring confirmed that he remained in the city, living a largely solitary life. Authorities were acutely aware that Ramirez's knowledge of the area and potential awareness of the investigation could complicate an arrest, so they assembled a tactical team to ensure both safety and the preservation of evidence. On April 12, 2022, Ramirez was taken into custody outside his home without incident. He appeared calm, almost indifferent, as officers handcuffed him and read his rights. Neighbors were shocked. Ramirez had been considered a quiet, ordinary man. Many had no idea of his connection to the long unsolved disappearance, and the arrest sent ripples through Albuquerque's East Side community. Local news outlets reported the arrest within hours, generating intense public interest and renewed attention on the case. The subsequent forensic examination of Ramirez's property revealed additional evidence. Jessica's backpack, carefully hidden behind boxes in a detached garage, contained remnants of her personal belongings, some degraded but identifiable through advanced testing. Pollen and soil analysis confirmed consistency with the locations where she had been last seen. The careful placement suggested premeditation and an attempt to conceal the crime over time. Investigators were stunned by the meticulousness with which the evidence had been hidden for nearly 17 years. Interviews with Ramirez yielded limited cooperation. He denied direct involvement, maintaining a veneer of normalcy that belied the growing body of evidence against him. Detectives, relying on physical evidence and witness accounts, built a comprehensive case. The DNA match, corroborated by Fiber's trace material, and his known proximity to Jessica, formed a compelling narrative of guilt. Ramirez's failure to provide any credible alibi for October 14, 2005, further strengthened the prosecution's position. The trial began in February 2023, with the Sanders family attending each session. The courtroom was heavy with emotion as witnesses recounted the search efforts, the enduring pain of uncertainty, and the meticulous work that ultimately brought Ramirez to justice. Forensic experts testified in detail about the DNA evidence, vehicle examination, and modern investigative techniques that had cracked the case after nearly 2 decades. Ramirez remained stoic, offering no expressions of remorse or explanation, his silence amplifying the gravity of the crime in the eyes of the jury. After a week of testimony and closing arguments, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. The unanimous verdict returned, guilty on all counts related to the kidnapping and murder of Jessica Sandoval. Judge Manuel Ortiz sentenced Ramirez to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While justice has been delayed, it is not denied, the judge said. The victim's family has waited far too long, and this sentence represents society's recognition of the value of her life and the severity of the crime. For the Sanders family, the verdict brought a mix of relief and lingering sorrow. Miguel and Rosa, who had spent 17 years searching for answers and fighting for justice, felt a sense of closure they had once feared would never come. Their relief was tempered by the recognition that nothing could restore the years lost, the innocence stolen, or the life their daughter might have lived. "We finally know the truth," Rosa said, her voice trembling. "It doesn't bring her back, but it tells us that she mattered, that someone is accountable, and that the story doesn't end with silence anymore." The community of Albuquerque, deeply affected by the resolution, responded with widespread support for the Sanders family. Vigils were held to commemorate Jessica. Educational programs were implemented in her name, and local law enforcement celebrated the case as a model for how modern technology can revive even the most stagnant investigations. Media coverage emphasized both the tragedy and the triumph, the persistence of a family, the dedication of investigators, and the power of DNA and forensic science to reveal hidden truths. The Sanders family established the Jessica Sandoval Foundation in 2023, focusing on missing children advocacy, forensic technology support for small-town law enforcement, and educational initiatives promoting community awareness and safety. The Foundation's programs have since assisted in multiple cold cases across New Mexico and neighboring states, demonstrating the ripple effect of one resolved case on countless others still seeking answers. The months following Ramirez's arrest were a mix of intense investigation and emotional processing for the Sanders family. Miguel and Rosa Sandoval found themselves revisiting every corner of their home, every neighborhood, and every memory connected to Jessica's disappearance. Each photograph, each school project, each drawing she had left behind became a testament to a life stolen too soon. Friends and neighbors offered support, yet it was impossible to fill the void that had persisted for 17 years. Every conversation, every news segment, and every court proceeding forced them to relive the nightmare, yet each step forward also carried a sense of progress they had not felt for decades. Detectives continued to dig into Ramirez's past, uncovering patterns and behaviors that, in hindsight, painted a clearer picture of how Jessica had been targeted. School records, social media archives from the early 2000s, and testimonies from former colleagues suggested Ramirez had an unusual fascination with young girls in the community. He had volunteered for after-school programs and youth sports leagues, positions that allowed him to observe and, in some cases, manipulate the routines of children without raising suspicion. Investigators also reviewed his personal journals, which contained meticulous notes about his movements, observations of local neighborhoods, and entries that hinted at a desire to control and surveil those around him. One particularly striking discovery came from digital forensics. Old emails and early internet chat logs showed Ramirez attempting to contact teenagers using fake profiles and coded messages. While these communications had gone unnoticed in the early 2000s, modern techniques allowed investigators to decode and timestamp these interactions. They revealed an unsettling pattern. Ramirez had been planning and monitoring potential targets for months before Jessica disappeared. This evidence was crucial in establishing premeditation, showing that her abduction was not random, but calculated. The community's response to these revelations was a mix of horror and disbelief. How could a man so integrated into daily life, so ordinary in appearance, have hidden such darkness? Former neighbors recounted benign interactions, lawn care, polite greetings, casual conversations, never suspecting the danger that had existed right under their noses. Teachers, parents, and community members struggled with the cognitive dissonance of a predator who had appeared in every way unremarkable. He was the last person anyone would have suspected, one former co-worker recalled. He smiled, helped out, and yet he carried something unimaginable inside. As the legal process progressed, prosecutors focused on highlighting both the meticulous planning and the human cost of Ramirez's crime. Witnesses described the impact on the Sandoval's, from the endless nights of searching to the emotional toll that had left scars invisible but deep. Former police officers testified about the challenges they faced in 2005, constrained by resources, limited technology, and the inability to fully pursue every lead. Their testimony emphasized how modern tools had transformed an unsolvable case into one that could finally yield justice. Forensic scientists played a central role in the courtroom. They explained the sophisticated techniques that had allowed evidence to be recovered from decades-old samples. Microscopic fibers, soil traces, and DNA fragments were all meticulously documented and analyzed, demonstrating the sheer precision required to connect Ramirez to Jessica. Animations and visual reconstructions helped the jury understand the timeline of events, from the moment Jessica left home to her disappearance and the evidence left behind. These presentations were emotionally charged, leaving few in the courtroom untouched. The defense, understanding the weight of the evidence, focused primarily on Ramirez's age, claiming that his advanced years made incarceration excessively harsh. They portrayed him as a reformed, quiet individual, arguing that the punishment should reflect both compassion and practicality. Ramirez himself maintained silence, refusing to testify or offer an explanation. His calm demeanor, juxtaposed with the overwhelming evidence, created an eerie tension in the courtroom, forcing the jury to confront the reality of evil masked by ordinariness. The jury deliberated for 8 hours, weighing nearly 2 decades of pain, investigation, and evidence. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts, including kidnapping, murder, and concealment of a body. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, tears, and quiet contemplation. Judge Manuel Ortiz delivered a sentence of life imprisonment without parole, acknowledging the enduring trauma inflicted upon the Sandoval family and the premeditated nature of Ramirez's crime. For Miguel and Rosa, the sentence brought a bittersweet sense of closure. They had spent nearly 17 years holding on to hope, searching tirelessly and advocating for their daughter, and now justice in some form had been achieved. "Nothing will bring Jessica back," Rosa said, her voice quivering with emotion. "But knowing the person who hurt her is behind bars gives us a piece of peace we thought we'd never have." Miguel added, "We can finally start to heal. The nightmares don't disappear, but we know the truth, and that changes everything." The resolution also prompted reflection within the Albuquerque Police Department. Officers involved in the original investigation revisited old files, acknowledging how limited technology, staffing shortages, and procedural gaps had hindered progress. The formation of the Cold Case Unit in 2020 had been pivotal, demonstrating the value of sustained attention, community engagement, and the strategic application of new forensic methods. Lessons from the Sandoval case became part of departmental training, emphasizing the importance of preserving evidence, tracking seemingly minor leads, and leveraging advancements in DNA analysis and digital forensics. Community impact was immediate. Local schools hosted assemblies, discussing the importance of vigilance and personal safety. Neighborhood watch programs strengthened, and families organized information sessions with law enforcement, teaching children to recognize and report suspicious behavior. The annual vigil for missing children, previously a quiet event, became a larger gathering, honoring Jessica's memory while educating the public about the realities of abduction and the long-term effects on families. The Sandovals also turned their grief into advocacy. They established the Jessica Sandoval Foundation, dedicated to supporting families of missing children, providing grants for cold case investigations, and promoting forensic education in schools. The foundation funded DNA testing programs, helped train officers in rural communities on evidence preservation, and launched campaigns to raise public awareness about missing persons. Through these initiatives, the Sandovals ensured that Jessica's story had a broader impact, helping to prevent similar tragedies and to solve other long-standing cases. Over the following months, Ramirez remained incarcerated, his appeals process underway but limited by the overwhelming weight of evidence. The Sandovals focused on rebuilding their lives, though they acknowledged that the loss of their daughter would never truly fade. Rituals once devoted to her absence, like quiet walks in her favorite park or sitting by her empty bedroom window, became moments to honor her memory and celebrate the person she had been. Friends and community members continued to offer support, recognizing the extraordinary perseverance the family had demonstrated over nearly 2 decades.